I got the fan right for you guys, right in the right shot.
There it is, and we're live. Welcome, Rink Rats. We are kicking off because it's July, season 6, episode 1 of the Chicago Rinkcast. Goodbye to the old, in with the new. And a lot has gone on in the last 2 weeks in the world of Blackhawk hockey, and we're here to dissect it, talk about it, argue about it, joke about it, cry a little bit if we have to, and talk about what's going to be happening next year. I am joined by some of my favorite folks. First of all, I'm joined by the gatekeeper, Jeff Osborne, the co-founder of The-Rink, and also co-founder, I believe, of The Net Perspective, which he's going to touch on in a minute, a new podcast just for goalies, just for you that are brave enough, strong enough, willful enough, and maybe weird enough to jump into the pipes and dare to talk goaltending with the gatekeeper. Jeff, what's going on, buddy?
Nothing much, man. Just keeping busy. Playing hockey, Dad. You know how it is.
Hockey Dad's a good life. Awesome. Mm-hmm. And Ray Napientekto, who we'll go to early on the Alex DeBrincat trade, is here. An Alex DeBrincat fan favorite and great overall guy, a good hockey and baseball mind. Ray, what's happening?
Nothing much. Thanks for having me on. It's been too long.
It has been too long. Excellent. And Sean Fitzgerald is here, ladies and gentlemen, straight from his basement where the internet is spotty at best and the fan is always threatening his head. Sean, good to see you, pal. The hat is backwards, so we don't know what you're wearing. Do you have a surprise for us?
I do. It's a blacked out Blackhawks hat because that's what we feel like as fans right now. Black, dark, despair.
Okay, so it's not. I thought it was just a blank black hat. I thought it was some sort of ode to Spinal Tap.
No,
or something that you on here.
No, it's a blacked out Blackhawks hat, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, how much more black can you get? And the answer is none more black. So very well done. Looking great. And as Derek Small says, you can see your reflection in both sides when looking at that album. So the Spinal Tap hat is here, which is great. A lot of Hawks fans want a Spinal Tap right now after what has gone on over the last couple weeks. It's been crazy, and we are going to get into it all, folks, tonight. But before we do, shout out to our sponsor, puckhockey.com, puckhcky.com, all caps, except for the .com part. Use discount code The-Rink for 10% off. Get you a free t-shirt. And check out the Rink Watch Wear. And somehow I always seem to do that. Rink
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. Yeah, be quiet. I'm hunting wabbits. And then we want to defer to Gate real quick. For those of you who know Gate, the gatekeeper, and Jeff Osborne well, he's got something really good cooking. So before we talk Hawks hockey, Gate, the Net Perspective. What's the deal on your new podcast, buddy? What do you got going on?
Tendy!
Shorzy.
You're the worst player on our team. Great in the room, but you're the worst player on our team.
Yeah, I decided with a friend of mine that we were going to start a goaltending podcast called The Net Perspective. It's something a little bit different. It's not Hawk-centric. It's just hockey-centric. It's hockey all over. It's about goalies. There aren't a lot of hockey podcasts out there that are about goalies. There's a couple, maybe one or two, but we wanted to give what the perspective of a goalie in net, what they see, what things like that. Break down some plays, maybe some goals you think were bad goals. Maybe they weren't so bad because we can show you why that is. We'd also like to talk about, the lack of youth development with goalies and how there's, just a lack of development in the lower levels of goaltending for hockey and how goaltending coaches look at things, because him and I both have about combined 50 years of playing and coaching experience in the sport of being goalies. So
old man.
Yeah, exactly. And Andy, I want to say thank you for asking me about my hat too. It's a Cooper.
Yes.
Old school. Yeah. But anyway, just the Net Perspective. Go check it out. Go subscribe. It's something a little different. You're not going to get the same thing you get with the Hawks talk and all that stuff where we talk about everything. If you want to talk about goalies, the quirky goalies, and the crazy goalies and things like that, and maybe goalie moves, and we've got some ideas of some really cool segments we're going to do about goalies, and also this awesome second episode we did with a guy named Surgeon Singh, who has created a new cage called the Uncage for goalie masks. And he's got a prototype out there, and it's not just wires. It's kind of made with bulletproof vest materials and things like that. So it's something different, and it's kind of, outside the box. But go check out the episode. It's really cool. We did an interview with him, and we talked with him for almost an hour about this stuff. So if you
Awesome.
like that kind of thing, go check it out. We're going to try and get some goalies on the podcast, pro goalies, amateur goalies, things like that.
What's
that?
Hannu Toivonen.
Hannu Toivonen. Yeah, I'm sure he's driving a Zamboni somewhere in Finland right now.
Nice.
Right.
Somewhere with Carrie Taco.
So yeah, the net perspective, go check it out, subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks, man.
Good stuff. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting some follows. My dad was a goaltender, so he's going to be listening as well. So very exciting, and
I appreciate it.
Can't wait to check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
So, folks, yeah. So I guess the big question is, we're about to talk Blackhawk hockey. What hasn't happened in the month of July with the Chicago Blackhawks? Okay, Kyle Davidson, the new GM. Now, love him or hate his moves right now, it's on, folks. The rebuild is on. Lots of you wanted a rebuild. Now that it's here, a lot of folks are unhappy with what's been going on and what he's been doing, but it's happening. He's saying, I'm making this my thing. This is going to be my team. We're moving some parts. We got to rebuild. Our farm system is bogus, so we got to stock the cupboard. And he's making moves. He's making it interesting. Whether you love it or hate it, it's pretty entertaining, to say the least. Now, when it won't get entertaining is when you see the 22-23 on-ice product. Okay, there's going to be a serious lack of entertainment there, and we'll acknowledge that. It's going to be a really long and hard year. But the first domino to fall a couple weeks ago, on the eve of the draft, or actually it was a couple hours before the draft, was fan favorite, 2-time 40-goal scorer, 3-time 30-goal scorer, 24-year-old Alex DeBrincat was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks. It was shocking when there were rumors about it in the first place, and it happened, folks. It officially happened. Alex DeBrincat was traded to the Ottawa Senators for the 7th overall pick, for the 39th overall pick, and a 3rd-round pick in 2024. So Kyle Davidson wanted to get into the first round. He did, not just with that trade, but with the Kirby Dach trade, and also acquiring Petr Mrázek in that sense too for the 25th overall pick. We're going to get into those picks in a minute, but DeBrincat's gone, and that's tough. And I'm going to go to Ray on this one first, because Ray, you're a big Alex DeBrincat fan. You love the guy. You've always been a supporter. And I think the general consensus on this is that the Hawks fell a little short in the return. Talk to me, buddy.
If I'm Ottawa, I'm happy that I didn't have to give away any prospects that they have. I think, when you're giving away a 7 and a 39 for, somebody like DeBrincat that's going to come in and do a lot of good things for you. And, they've got the cupboard stocked, and that's what Chicago's looking to do. Ottawa, again, if it pans out, if they've got money to sell or, money to use in a few years and bring free agents in, there's a lot that goes into being Stanley Cup contender, but I thought they could have brought more in for DeBrincat. It seemed like they have left a prospect on there on the table. But again, when you're talking about, Korchinski and, I think, Davidson has he wants skating. You could see that. I thought the first 3 picks, I was like, man, every single one of these guys are, top-notch skaters, So I think, it's going to help the rebuild. It had to be done. I think you could have, received a little bit more. Again, we're not on the phone. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But when you can pull that off and feel like you get yourself a guy that you wanted to draft, I know no GM is ever going to stand up and say, we picked this guy and, he wasn't there. Everybody's always going to say that's our guy. But I truly believe that, and then, you back that up with a couple more first round picks, have to restock the cupboard. In April, you were looking going, they got Lucas Reichel, and what else? Alex DeBrincat, but by the time he's, they're going to be good. So I think they're in a better spot, but I feel like they might have left the prospect on the table. And
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Ottawa's got this vast prospect system right now. They've got so many guys that I guess you could have tapped into. I heard from a source in the Philadelphia war room that mentioned that Kyle Davidson's price tag was so high on DeBrincat that people just walked away. And finally, then he just got an itchy trigger finger close to the draft, and Ottawa said, "Okay, if this, we'll do this right now." Sean, do you think the Hawks are going to regret this at some point in time? I mean, we obviously don't know. They got into the top 10 with this, but what say you about this deal? And are you upset? Are you bummed? Are you just like, hey, it is what it is?
So they will regret it in the short term, obviously. Alex DeBrincat, great player. Like he's Ray's talked about on this podcast, and I think several others have. He's really changed his game. He went from just like a one-way scorer to more of an all-around complete player. Like he doesn't get bodied off the puck. He plays well on his own end. He's really, really improved his game. So in the short term, they're going to regret it. In the long term, I don't know, because you don't know what Kevin Korchinski is going to be. And even though all the draft experts give him a B, you don't know, or you give the overall Blackhawks draft a grade of B. You just don't know. Like everybody thought Nico Herscher, or I'm sure I'm butchering his name, was going to be a pretty decent player. And he got flipped in a trade with Vegas this past year. And he was a top 2, top 3 overall pick. So you just don't know with draft picks. Ottawa is building something up there. In addition to adding DeBrincat, they also got Claude Giroux, who they signed. So they're going to have some offensive firepower on that team. I think also the reason why, like what you said about Kyle Davidson's asking price being so high, and then he kind of pulled the trigger. He also, like people have said, and what it made sense to me is Ottawa's really one of the few teams that had the cap space to kind of fit it in, because he's due $6 million this year. His qualifying offer is going to be $9 million next year. And like a contending team like Tampa or somebody like that doesn't have that cap space, and they'd have to make another move just to try to even get DeBrincat in. That's why when the Blackhawks were able to get 2 first-round picks for, Brandon Hagel, the reason they got those picks is because his contract was so friendly. So I think the return with DeBrincat was lower because of his cap hit. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a good call. Gate, your thoughts not only on that trade, but I'd like you to also kick us off of the Kirby Dach trade. Obviously the loss of DeBrincat, and then Kirby Dach is shipped out of town on the draft for the 13th overall pick and the 66th overall pick. So they just said, okay, Dach, we gave you a couple years, bye. So first on DeBrincat, and then give me some thoughts on the Dach deal.
I just got done at the rink talking about this DeBrincat thing. So shout out to Tiara Joy on Twitter. She's really cool. We were talking about this trade at the rink. But the DeBrincat thing, I was okay with them trading him. I thought they were going to get more, like Ray said. It was one of those things. It's like, if you don't get a deal that blows you away, okay, you could hang on to him. He could be that guy that, kind of leads the young kids into the next generation. That's fine. But if you got a good deal, like better than Hagel or something like that, sure, unload him, get what you can for him. And like Ray, I was kind of underwhelmed with what they got. But a lot of people kind of mentioned that, like, maybe Kyle Davidson just decided he was going to trade him, and the best deal he got, he was going to take. And we're going to see down the road if that was the right decision. But I think he just said, I'm going to go all in. I'm going scorched earth. And once he did that, I guess there's maybe no turning back. That's the only thing I can think of. But, to get back into the first round, they had to do that. There's no way you're going to have a rebuild in under 5 years with not having a first round draft pick this year. You're just setting it all down the road one more year. And if they weren't going to get rid of Kane and get something for him, or Toews or whatever, this was their only choice. That and Dach. And then now we shift over onto the Dach thing. And sure, I think maybe they gave up a little early on him. I think, if you could get him back on track, and maybe they broke him, maybe they don't get him back on track because they didn't develop him. And how many of us said this all along? You got to develop the guy. You got to be careful with him. You got to hit a home run with this one. If you're going to bring in Dach, you got to develop him. Instead, they threw him right into the NHL, and he was good for a while until people figured him out. People figured him out, and that's what happens when you have these first-year phenoms sometimes, is the league, once they come around a second or third time and they see you and they figure you out, you're not as good a player. And that's kind of what happened, I think, here, is they started figuring Kirby Dach out and how to defend him, and then he just wasn't as effective anymore. Well, they should have probably sent him back to the junior, back to junior, and let him dominate for another year. and just keep his confidence up, and then maybe even play him in the AHL or for half a year or something like that. Just let him marinate. You know.
Yeah. I mean,
I suggest you let that one marinate.
It's crazy.
Sorry, go ahead.
They rushed everyone into the system. They ruined a lot of people, and Kirby Dach could have been one of them. And maybe they cut bait a little bit too early, but at this point, like I said, the same thing with the Kirby with Alex DeBrincat. Like, I think he just decided that he was going to trade these guys, and he was going to get in the first round. He was going to try to get as many first round picks as he could, and anyone that was going to offer him a first round pick, he was going to unload, because are these players even going to be around when this team's good again? That's the bottom line. Are these players going to even be in Chicago when they're good? So why hang on to them now and just let them eat up the prime of their career when the Blackhawks are just going to be bad anyway? That kind of thing,
Yeah. No, I agree with all that. We had a quick question in the comment section from Matt Pisnarski. If you're related to Tim Pisnarski, my old scored hockey coach from Saddle and Cycle, A+ buddy. But anyway, how much is Matt
Pisnarski pretty well? I know Matt Pisnarski and the whole Pisnarski family, and they're great people. So
awesome.
We won't hold that against him.
Yeah, right. Matt, don't be friends with Gate. But no, great question. How much of Cat's success is because of Kane? Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. Will he digress in Ottawa? I don't know. Ottawa's got some pretty speedy forwards. We'll see.
But they don't have Petr Kane. They don't have Petr Kane. I mean, when you don't have Petr Kane feeding you saucers all game long, like, that's, it might be a difference. I don't think he's going to drop off a ton, but I think he could still score 35 every year, which is very valuable. But I think maybe Kane does have some, some bit of, adding to his success a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I'd say a lot to his success. I mean, those one-timers that you see him, fire off a lot of. Petr Kane might be the only player that can make some of those passes when he's floating them over a few different sticks and finding seams like that. So I guess we're going to find out. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Kane was very instrumental in DeBrincat's development and his game. And you know what, folks? We're going to get into this later too. You're going to see what Dylan Strome is like without Petr Kane next year. Okay,
and Alex DeBrincat. And Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, and we will. I think DeBrincat will still score a lot. I do. I think Dylan Strome. I mean, I said this before. I think Dylan Strome's going to be out of the NHL by the time he's 30. We'll get into this a little bit later, over and over again.
Firing hot takes out there.
I know. I'm going to keep it going, but these are all really good questions. Going back, or Matt, thank you so much for your question. Really appreciate it. And going back to just the trade in general. I mean, and Ray, what are your thoughts? I mean, if anyone, I'm rooting for Kirby Dach. I am. I hope he goes to Montreal and he gets it back on track. Maybe if anyone could get something out of him, and it is Martin St. Louis, who, when he was hired there, quickly the players started believing, they started playing. Maybe a fresh start will be helpful for him. At the same time, it's like, trading Kirby Dach for the 13th overall pick and the 66th pick, I think is a good trade, actually. Ray, what do you think?
I thought it was a good trade. I mean, you got to like Dach. I mean, I don't think he did. He was definitely rushed. I hate when somebody says, what else do they have to prove? We heard about that with Lucas Reichel last year. What does he have left to prove? Well, he still has to develop. What he has to prove is when he gets to the NHL. That's when he has to prove it. You can send him back to minors, send him back to juniors, whatever you want to do, whatever they're eligible for. So, you got to cheer for Dach. I think he's got skill. I think he's got talent. You just rush a guy, you rush a kid, and that's what you did. You did it with Boquist. You rushed him, and you're not sure what you have, and next thing you know, you're trying to get rid of him because you're trying to win right now and not develop them. And I thought they did a great job. Getting that 13th pick. I think Frankie is going to be. He's a potential top line player. He's got speed. He's got puck handling skills. His offensive talent. He's going to come around hopefully with an all around game. You want development there, but I think he's a very talented player. And even with Gavin Hayes, he's good too. He could skate. He's somebody that he's a pass to play against. Guys that you hate to see a guy like Dach go, but for that trade, I mean for both trades, I mean you had to restock the cupboard. It was bare. You had one can of ramen noodles. So now you're starting to get some Campbell's noodle soup, and hey, we're starting trying to get some things that are going to help us get through it. So I thought that was a good trade. It's just you just don't know what you got with Dach yet, and that's a shame because he's been in the league for a few seasons now, and you feel like hey, just to get a better start, go somewhere else. Like you said, St. Louis might even get something out of him. Hopefully you get yourself a number one, centerman, forward. Hopefully got yourself maybe a top 9 guy later on, and it's worth it. But I really like that trade. I thought that was a real good get for somebody that you once had at number 3. Now that was a different regime. I know that. So when you're getting, 13 and 66 back,
yep,
you don't feel great about it, but I thought those were 2 really good picks.
Yeah, I would agree. And Sean, I'm curious your take. I mean, did they give up too early on Kirby Dach here? Or and we're going to get into their first round picks in a second. I do think that Frank Nazar or Nazar, or I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, could be their best pick in the draft. Ultimately, just based off of speed but your thoughts on the Dach trade and how that went, and are they going to regret this one? I don't think they will as much as the DeBrincat one, but what do you think?
I don't think they're going to regret this one either. I agree with everyone else saying they maybe they gave up on him a little too early. They did rush him. My biggest gripe was when they rushed him back from his wrist injury. Those take a long time to heal. I thought that was a huge mistake.
Absolutely. Yep.
But then they had to shut him down again because they admitted that they actually rushed him back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just pure stupidity.
He was the only, he was their biggest asset at the time, and they rushed him, and that just showed the failure of the front office and everyone else involved with that. And I think Davidson trading him, I think Davidson, based on his moves, he wants a clean start. Like, he wants his own canvas. And Kirby Dach was tied to the old regime. Regardless of what happened with him, he was going to take it. So maybe he wasn't on board with the pick to begin with. We don't know. We don't know what we've read. Stan Bowman and Mark Kelly basically just did whatever they wanted. Mark Kelly was scouted certain guys based on skill only, and Stan Bowman drafted on skill only. So we have no idea if Kyle Davidson wanted Kirby Dach, or if he wanted Bowen Byram, or if he wanted somebody else in that draft. We have no idea. Based on this trade, I think it's safe to say that he wasn't really sold on Kirby Dach, especially considering Dach hasn't progressed the way they hoped he would. I hope Martin St. Louis can, right the ship with him up there, because I feel bad for the kid. The Blackhawks didn't do him any favors at all. They haven't done any favors for any draft pick over the last however many years. So, I mean, St. Louis, like when Cole Caulfield was struggling up there, St. Louis came in, focused, and Caulfield went off again. So hopefully they can get Dach focused. And it's all, like Eric Andrews has always said on this podcast, it's all about asset management. And they got they got 1 first rounder and a lottery pick in the 3rd round for Kirby Dach. I think that's the best they could have hoped for. Hopefully all their first round picks pan out, and maybe they hit on one of these 3rd round picks that they were able to acquire with trades. And that's a productive draft. That's a great draft if they could do that. So I think getting more bites of the apple is what Davidson was trying to do in this draft, and moving Dach was the right move.
Well,
but
I don't know if July. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I won't go on Twitter and calling him curb bust and all those other meatheads that Kate and I talked to one day. That's ignorant thinking.
No, I think it's easy for fans that have not seen what he's capable of doing to just say, well, he's a bust, so great trade. And we don't know. He's still a kid. He's still young. Maybe, the reclamation projects, those were some of Stan Bowman's favorite things to do. None of them worked out for him, but hey, they've worked out for other people.
Michael Frolik.
Michael Frolik. Yeah, that's the lone star in there. Yeah, that's for sure. So, let's talk about these first round picks. So, I mean, if you told me when I woke up the morning of July 1st, I was like, God, I really hope the Hawks get into the first round. And, they need to be in the first round. So now they come out of there with 3 first round picks. And the final one in a trade acquiring goaltender Petr Mrázek from the Toronto Maple Leafs and his $3.8 million salary hit, which is fine in exchange because they have the room. They needed a goalie in exchange for that 25th overall pick. and giving up the 38th pick back to Toronto. Clearly a cap shedding move for Toronto, but the Hawks then got their goalie, and then they got a first-round pick out of it. And that's good stuff. We like that, or I do. So 3 first-round picks. Kevin Korchinski from the Seattle Thunderbirds, WHL.
That Korchinski guy.
Frank Nazar. Frank Nazar, I don't know. Nazar, we'll see. And Sam Rinzel. First of all, Hawks folks, if you want to in the next 2 years say, C, they shouldn't have traded DeBrincat, or C, they shouldn't have traded Dach, you have no argument for that. Okay, and even Mrázek, because these first-round picks, you're not going to see these guys for a while. You're going to have to be patient. I mean, especially Sammy Rinzel, who's going to go back to Waterloo in the USHL for 1 more year, and then he's not going to be at the University of Minnesota until the fall of 2023. So you're not going to see him for a while. Smooth skating defenseman, high school player in Minnesota, then joined Waterloo in the USHL. Frankie Nazar, or Nazar, or Nassar, I don't know. I'll figure it out one of these days. Wait for a broadcaster to say it, and we'll get into it. Yeah. U.S. development program, going to the University of Michigan, straight speed killer. If you're going to be watching college hockey next year, tune in to watch this kid. He could be the steal out of this draft. He straight up flies. So those are the 3. Ray, you made a comment earlier. Speed. That's what the Hawks were into here. Talk about some of these kids. What have you learned about some of these kids? What you've watched, what you've liked, what you don't like? Or you just kind of like, I don't know. We'll see.
I like it. I like it. I mean, the game's built on speed. I mean, I know you still have to have size. There's a lot that goes into winning a Stanley Cup. We all know that. But speed's the game right now. And Frankie, that's why I always use first names. You got to earn that last name, right? You know, for me, you know, when you talk about Keith, you talk about Seabrook, you talk about Kaner, you know that. But hey, you know, Frankie, Kevin, you know, you got to earn those last names. That's something that it's easy for me that way. But I like it. I thought they did a good job. You know, I think, you know, the last pick, it's going to take a while. You know, to go back, it's a development. You know, bring some size, you can skate. But I think the first 2 picks are guys that you know, it's going to take 2-3 years, which it should. You know, they've got to develop. They've got to work on some things. They've got to get bigger and stronger. They've got to become young men, not just kids playing against, you know, the top players. But I thought, you know, at the end of the day, I was on vacation with the family. And, you know, at the end of the day, I thought, man, you know, Kyle had an idea. You know, he went in and said, I want speed, I want talent, I want offensive talent. He got that in threefold. And it looked like he had a plan. It wasn't just like, oh, man, you know, like, you know, with Stan, it was always like, who'd they pick 32? Let me get – I've seen this – you know, I've seen 1,000 junior games. Who is this kid? You know, you're trying to figure it out, and then you're thinking, okay, how does this fit in? Can he play right away? That's not what we were looking at. You know, we were looking at guys and it was like, all right, hey, he's there. This is a good pick. They got a guy that they wanted. It looks like speed. Looks like he wants guys that can play offense, guys that can move the puck, guys that can make good decisions, have high IQs. That's what they're looking for. And it looked like he had a game plan. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to throw something and try and outsmart everybody by picking somebody nobody's heard of before. So I was excited about it. Thought it was a good draft. Again, you know, it's going to take 2-3 years. We talked about this, you know, Gate. You know, we talked about this a few years ago. 2019 should have always been about 2023. Well, now it's 2022. Now it's going to have to be about 2025, and that's what these picks are about. You know, we're not going to find out if who wins the Alex DeBrincat trade or who wins the Dach trade for another 5, 6, 7 seasons. It's just not. It's not here. So, but overall, I thought it was good. I saw again that first round. I give it an A for Davidson. I really do. I thought that first round was definitely really good.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Gate, any of your thoughts on not only those first 3 picks, but the second rounders? Some of those guys look like they're pretty decent as well. I know we don't know. Ryan Green, 57th overall. He's going to Boston University. Obviously, he's going to be playing in a great program. Colby Cohen, of course, loves him.
Oh, geez.
And Paul Ludwinski, you know, that 39th pick.
Oh, Ludwinski is a perfect Chicago name. That Lewinsky and that Korchinski guys. Perfect Chicago names. But, I mean, no, go ahead. I'll take it from here.
No. Go ahead.
I mean, gone are the days of Stan Bowman going out there and picking a whole bunch of Moneyball guys that, you know, are 5'9" and, you know, their stretches and things like that. Like he probably could have been a bit of a stretch on that Sam Rinzel pick, but that's your third pick in the first round. Like if you're going to you're going to reach on a guy, sure, reach there. Why not? You know, you've already made two pretty solid picks.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
The rest of the guys, I mean, I've seen a lot about Sam Savoy and that Aiden Thompson in the third round. I've seen the names come up a lot. Now, I don't know much about them. I'm no expert on those prospects, but when you hear, you know, and you follow, you know, scouts and stuff and people who do this kind of thing for a living, like Ray kind of does, you know, you hear good name, you hear these names out there a lot. Like it makes it seem kind of promising instead of like Ray said, you know, Stan to go out there and he'd pick some dude and you'd be like, who's this guy? I've never heard of him before. You know, all these guys have watched all these games and no one's heard of these guys before. And then they turn out to be nothing because they had no development behind any of them either. So you can't reach on a guy and then not develop them. What are they going to turn into? They're going to turn into nothing. So, you know, a couple of defensemen, you know, big relative to the NHL, you know, 6'2", 6'4", you know, Rinzel's only like what, 18, just turned 18 or something like that. And he's 6'4" already. He could still grow. I mean, you could have him and Alex Vlasic, some big dudes out there. And Rinzel supposedly can skate really well for his size. And Nazar, like, I mean, I don't want to compare him to like, you know, to this player because this player's you know, an elite NHL player that everyone's heard about. And Nathan MacKinnon, like that's what speed can do in the NHL when used properly. What Nathan MacKinnon can do to a team and just put him, you know, just make them panic because you cannot stop this guy because he's so fast and he will go around you in one step. That's, you know, the kind of potential that a Nazar Frank Nazar can have. No, he may not. He's probably not going to turn out to be the next Nathan MacKinnon. But if you give me a poor man's Nathan MacKinnon, I'll take that. I mean, that's a killer. That's a killer right there. You know, that's a defense killer when he can, you know, he could blow past just about any defenseman in the league outside of Cale Makar. I'm taking it, man. I'm taking it every single time. So,
yeah, I mean, if you look back at the last 10 years of Cup winners and even further down to the Blackhawks 2009, 2010 team, speed is the reason those teams win. I mean, every year when teams win the Cup, it's because they're fast. And that's how it works. And I mean, if you disagree or you're like, oh, we should take this project, that project, ask Down Sweeney how he feels about the 2015 draft when we had 3 first-round picks in a row for the Bruins, passed up on, and then who went right after that? He drafted 3 players, and then Barzal went right after that.
Yeah.
And Barzal,
but you have to be able to. On top of that, you have to be able to play physical in the playoffs as well. So you need to be able to have that combination of both. You can't just have a fast team. You just have a fast team. When you hit the playoffs, they're just going to beat the hell out of you in the playoffs. Yeah. And then if you have just a big team, people are going to run around you. So you have to have that mix in the middle somewhere. But if you don't have the speed, you're going to be hurting for sure.
Yeah. If you have speed, you have a chance. If you don't, that's it. Shawnee, real quick, I want to, I know we've gone late to you on a couple of these topics. We're going to start you off with another one here. There's 2 things. I want just a few more thoughts. If you have any additional thoughts about the Hawks first round picks or any of their subsequent picks after that. And then your thoughts about Petr Mrázek in the pipes and what that's going to look like. First of all, Petr Mrázek, good luck, buddy. You're going to see a lot of shots, pal. And but yeah, just some of your thoughts on the picks and then Petr Mrázek.
The picks, I mean, I'll defer to Gate and everybody else on those. I've seen some good things about Nazar. Yeah, and I know the last pick in the 7th round, the Hawks never even saw. They just drafted him because he was a huge guy. So, I mean, 7th round pick, whatever. Anders Sorensen's going to have – he's the most important guy right now in the Blackhawks organization because he's going to be the guy coaching all of these first-round picks at Rockford at some point. Right. So he's going to have to develop those guys. So that guy, they're very high on him. I hope he has a plan. I hope they have a plan for when these guys start coming through Rockford, so he's the most important guy in the organization right now, in my opinion. Switching gears to Mrázek, he's fine. I mean, they need a caretaker goalie who's not going to get embarrassed on a nightly basis to hold down the fort while they tank. And they got a sweetener for it, and that's what you got to do when you're a tanking team, because that's what they're going to do. You're going to try to take on bad contracts for sweeteners and also fill holes until your guys are ready. So Mrázek behind in the pipes, he's not too good, so he's not going to affect the tank in that way, but he's not too bad where they're just going to get embarrassed night after night after night. He'll win some games and they'll be competitive because he's an NHL goalie, but they're not going to overachieve and screw up their plan. So I thought it was a good move. I mean, Powers brought it up a couple weeks beforehand. I'm glad that the Kyles were able to bury the hatchet from last year with the Marc-Andre Fleury kind of deal, and it worked. So he'll be the goalie for the next 2 seasons. Hopefully, Soderblom or somebody else will be ready to take over by then, or they'll have
Comesso.
Yeah, Drew Comesso eventually. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure any backup goalie, Soderblom, Drew Comesso, whoever it might be, they're certainly going to get their fair share of looks. I mean, during the rebuild. Well,
Alex Stalock. They don't forget they signed Alex Stalock, so he'll be the backup.
Yeah,
he'll be the backup. But so I mean, I certainly think, Mrázek's going to be awfully busy back there. Is what it sounds like. Gabe, your thoughts on
the 16 teams that make the playoffs? Now, I don't wish ill on anyone, but we need those 16 teams. We need 14 of them to lose their number one goalie, and there's going to be a bidding war for Petr Mrázek.
Yeah, it's quite possible. It's quite possible. Yeah, anything's possible with that. Gate, you're fine with the goalie situation during the rebuild? Just goalie to goalie here. Just want to give a couple tidbits in there.
Well, contrary to some people's belief, Kyle Dubas is not a genius for dumping the Petr Mrázek contract on the Blackhawks. He gave up a goalie, which the Blackhawks needed, and they didn't even need a good one. And he gave up their first-round draft pick, and I don't care if it was late in the first round. He gave up 2 assets for basically nothing. He cleared $3.8 million worth of space so that he could bring in $4.8 million worth of space with Matt Murray, who's just as bad, if not worse, than Petr Mrázek. So first of all, I want to address that. Kyle Dubas is not a genius for what he did. And all the people that wanted to argue with me on the stupid internet about that can go take a flying leap, because that was the dumbest move ever. But
and doing that while losing Jack Campbell in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other piece. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like what are you people sniffing in Toronto where you could frame this is him being a genius?
Well, because he dumped the lines at one point, so I mean,
because he dumped $3.8 million worth of salary next year, and he gained $1 million in salary this year for a guy who's hurt more than Mrázek and stinks worse than Mrázek, and he gave up his first round draft pick. But whatever, I digress. Back down to Petr Mrázek. I'm fine with Petr Mrázek. He's going to be fine. He's going to give up a lot of goals. So did Kevin Lankinen. It's the same situation. You got a goalie in there. He's relatively cheap. You know what? He wants to prove that he's, still an NHL player. He's going to have no expectations. There's going to be no pressure on him. That's fine. Alex Stalock behind him. That's fine. As long as you're not rushing Arvid Soderblom or you're not rushing Drew Comesso into the NHL, that's fine. You got guys that are place fillers that can eat pucks for the next couple of years, which is fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want to get into this whole thing like you can't bring in players that are too good because it's going to make the Blackhawks better. The Blackhawks are going to be terrible. They're going to be terrible no matter who you bring in. If you brought in Austin Matthews, they're still going to be a bad team. Like, you cannot make this team into like a contender or, affect their standings that much by bringing in any players. You just can't. They're going to be a bad team. They've broke it down to the core. It's down to the skeleton, and you got a couple guys that, that are in there. And I just saw Matt Pizarski put up, I hear Mrázek is a locker room cancer. Even if he is, so what? Fine. What does it even matter? None of these guys are going to be here when it matters. Yeah, it's like, and if you, what if you have to buy him out next year? Fine, buy him out. He's $3.8 million. What do you got? A $1 million dead cap next year. You're eating dead cap this year for Duncan Keith, who's retired. So it's like, you have the money, you have the space to do it. Like, it doesn't really matter at this point in time who's in net. Like the free agent goalies out there wasn't anyone out there. There was no one. You weren't going to bring Jack Campbell in because he doesn't want to come on a rebuilding team. And what are the other choices? So you got Petr Mrázek for free. And you got a first round draft pick on top of it. That's the brilliant move right there. Getting a goalie that can eat pucks and will just take it for free, and getting a first round draft pick on top of it. I would rather, and I'm not going to defend Kyle Davidson, to the heavens about, how great he was, but that was more of a brilliant move than Kyle Dubas dumping this stuff on us.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I don't even think that's a debate who won the trade in that sense.
Well, in Toronto, it's a debate, apparently.
Well, no, and they can debate that they're blue in the face. We're looking great right now in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally fine. That trade looks great for me and most fans. So, well, Mrázek aside, Ray, we're gonna start you off with a new topic because we still have a lot to cover. And that is the departures, if you will, of my favorite NHL hockey player of all time, Dylan Strome, and Dominik Kubalik. So let's before, and fans have been really up in arms about watching these two guys just exit stage left. Here's how this works, though, people. First of all, before we defer to Ray on what he thinks of this, both of which were restricted free agents. How qualifying offers work in the NHL is that if you make over $1 million in your current salary, 100% of that salary needs to be offered to that player to qualify them. Okay, so if the Hawks decided to bring back Dylan Strome, they owe him $3 million. If they decided to bring Dominik Kubalik back, they owe him $4 million. Okay, neither one of those guys is a $3 million or a $4 million player, particularly when you're rebuilding. You've got 3 players on your cap that are going to be $9 million players while you're rebuilding. Okay, and so the thinking behind this by Kyle Davidson is let these guys walk. We don't really need them anymore. We'll sign Domi for a 1-year contract who might be trade beat. We'll sign Athanasiou. Is that how you pronounce it?
Athanasiou. Andreas Athanasiou.
Andreas Athanasiou. And Andreas, I'm sorry I couldn't pronounce that right. If I ever meet you buy a beer. And sign those guys for 1-year deals who you might be able to flip. And you still, and I'm sorry I'm getting a little frustrated here, Ray, before even deferring to you. So just bear with me. For those of you on Twitter that are lighting up saying, well, then why didn't you trade Dylan Strome at the trade deadline or Kubalik at the trade deadline? Because now you let him go for nothing. I'm sorry, but there's no market for Dylan Strome in the trade deadline. There was no market for him, folks. Okay.
Third round, and nobody would give it to him.
No, if you look at the Final Four, if you look at the Edmonton Oilers, if you look at the New York Rangers, if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, and anyone else who is even close, even Toronto, tell me where Dylan Strome fits on any of those teams. He can't keep up. He's not a good enough skater.
I'm sorry for my outburst earlier. I came at you with a lot of anger, and that was unnecessary.
But, folks, don't blame Kyle Davidson. I'm sure the phone rang, or I'm sure he called people and said, any interest in Strome and Kubalik? And people are like, not really. Unless there's future considerations, unless you give them to us. So he had the foresight to say, all right, let him walk, and then we'll sign a couple of guys that we can trade later on. Ray, are you depressed about Strome and Kubalik as I am? Clearly, I'm just devastated.
I was high on Kubalik early on. I mean, I think that first season, his shooting percentage was off the charts. It was like 22 or something like that. And you're like, all right, he's, that was a 30-goal scorer. He had a great year. I mean, he made a run, I think, at the Calder, and but just didn't seem to develop. Didn't seem to do anything else. I thought, early on, like, man, even if he was just a 20-goal guy and was okay in his own end, you could see kind of maybe something was there. Just never seemed to pan out, and then that shooting, everything kind of goes back to norm, and, he's shooting in that 9-10%, which, gives him, 12 to 15 goals. And, what else is he bringing for you? And that's a lot of money for a guy, like him. I think man, he's somebody that I do cheer for. I think he has the talent. I think I see things there, but just he's not going to pan out. There was no trade market for him. Same thing with Dylan Strome, who, he could have started 100% of his, shifts in the offensive zone, and he still would be the player he is. And he spent most of the time in the offensive zone. He didn't have to chase pucks the other way. It was, if the other team gets the puck, get off the ice, because we can't trust you in the defensive end. So, it stinks. I just don't think there was a market for it, and I saw it where, how come you didn't get anything for it, sign him and then trade him? I just don't think there was a market. And I think for Davidson, it was just, let's just get rid of him. Let's start over. I'm not going to get anything. I'm stuck with them. Everybody gets excited that, he scored 20 goals, or he's had 48 points, or he's had, 50 points one time. There's a lot of players that do that. We're not going to be missing him. If Dylan Strome turns into a Selk Trophy finalist, I don't know. Okay, great. Sorry, we really missed that one. The one person that's going to say they're in those. You're not missing anything. So, but Kubalik, I really was high on him early on. A couple of seasons ago, I thought he was going to, maybe turn the corner at just size and tough in the corners. Get in front. Dylan Strome just flying by the net. Puck hit stick, go in. That's great. Kane, give him a little saucer pass, he might find it, stuff along those lines, but you're not going to miss anything. He's not going to Washington and turning them into, what they've been missing to get back to a Stanley Cup. Kubalik, for me, again, we're not going to miss these guys in 2-3 years, so, I just, the Dylan Strome love that I see in the stats and the analytics, I believe in all that stuff. I love that stuff. That's stuff that you can page through over and over, but when you're starting 77% of your time, 80% of the time in the offensive zone, it's pretty easy to put in 40 points a season.
And you're playing with 88 and 12 on your wings.
Right. Yes. Well, yes. It was our time at Anisimov. AA. Now we got Andreas, and I used to think about that with Anisimov. That it was just, man, he's not a second line center. He's just playing with Patrick Kane. I'm good for 38 points. Anisimov.
Well, look at Kubalik. Kubalik has that 30-goal season, and he's playing with Brandon Saad and Jonathan Taves before Jonathan Taves went through all of his ailments.
Right.
And so he's obviously lighting it up. He had guys to win pucks for him. Not too hard, when you're doing that. Shawnee, what say you? So Dylan Strome is off to Washington for a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Yeah. What is Washington getting out of this, other than a desperation move for a team whose cup window's closing?
Clearly, it's the replacement for Nicholas Backstrom, right?
Oh, my God.
I had to throw that in there. Go ahead, Shawnee.
They're getting a guy who can't skate, who will they'll hate him there. He's not any good. The reason why, I don't understand. People were so upset about Dylan Strome and Dominik Kubalik leaving. They got less of their qualifying offers in the open market. Dylan Strome was qualified at 3.6. He got 3.5, and he could have picked any team. Supposedly there was a huge market from his agent. Kubalik got $5 million for 2 years. His qualifying offers was 4. Clearly everybody saw what they done to the Blackhawks as smoke and mirrors. As Ray said, anybody who skates with 88 and 12 could score 30 points. Dylan Strome did that. He got less money than his qualifying offer after the best year of his career. They're getting a guy. He stinks. He's not any good. Kubalik, maybe he turns it around in Detroit. Maybe he plays well in that system. I don't know. But Dylan Strome, it's kind of scary that he was the 3rd overall pick of Arizona. He was the 3rd overall pick of the draft. And that everybody still hangs their hat on that he's scored more points than Connor McDavid in juniors. Everybody scores in juniors. Everybody.
Yeah, so did a lot of people.
Yeah. Dave Bolin used to score a ton of points in juniors. He didn't score in the NHL. So,
no.
I don't know.
So, I don't know.
I'm not upset. I didn't shed a tear over Wyatt. I didn't shed a tear over Lankinen, Strome, Kubalik, none of them.
Wyatt, man. Yeah, and everyone said, oh, my God, why are the Blackhawks drafting defensemen? They have so many. Well, they don't really have any good ones.
No.
I don't obviously KD doesn't think very highly of Ian Mitchell. He doesn't think highly of Nick Beaudin.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys aren't going to be the guys. So
no.
What are you going to do? I guess let's shift to Gate here on, some of these UFA signings. Max Domi, highly touted prospect, a few years ago, is kind of becoming a journeyman since then. But he did pretty well with Carolina. They had a pretty decent playoff push there. They lost to the Rangers in 7 games. I think he put up 6 points. I think he had 3 goals. Then A2, I'm just going to call him A2 before I butcher his name again. My apologies. And then Colin Blackwell. So those are the ones coming in. 2 of these guys are coming in 1-year deals. I think Blackwell's a 2-year contract. Am I right?
It is 2 for 1.2 a year.
Got it.
I looked it up.
I mean, what are you thinking, Gate, that these are guys that they're just going to flip eventually? Is that the play?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to try and flip anyone they can at this point in time. There's really no one that's on the current roster that I can see that they're not going to, if they get the opportunity to flip them, that they're not going to flip them.
If that could be flipped, they'd flip them today.
Yeah. I mean, Max Domi, he's become a bit of a, attitude problem. I mean, there's a reason he's moved around from Columbus to Montreal to Carolina, now to Chicago. And, he's a guy, though. I mean, he's got some talent. He can score some goals. He's got some energy. He's got the name. And that's fine. That's great. Bring him in. You need people. You need to fill out this roster with players. You don't want to get completely embarrassed. You want to look like you're trying. But this is a guy. I mean, there isn't much of a market for Max Domi anywhere else. So here he is coming to Chicago, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. Same with Andreas and Athanasiou. A couple years ago when he was with Detroit, I was kind of high on him because, you hear the guy's got blinding speed. Unfortunately, he might as well have blinding speed with no stick in his hand because he can't really do much else. But that's fine. Again. He's kind of a reclamation project. He was injured last year. That he was out in LA, and they're going to try and give him a shot and see if he can't, resume his career and try to, make himself an important middle 6 or third line player, and maybe get flipped for a playoff team in the playoffs. That's fine too. Blackwell, I saw a lot of him when I covered the Kraken last year. He's a guy. He's a third line guy who's going to go out there and he's going to play hard for you. And you know what you're going to get from him. And fans might like him because he plays hard. And that's going to be what it is. None of these guys are going to go out there and score 40 goals for you. None of these guys are going to go out there and win any big prestigious awards for you. But they're guys that are going to fill out the roster and you might be able to flip them for a valuable asset. You got them for free. That's where this is. And it's the same with Stalock. If someone was to want Stalock or Mrázek or anybody on this roster, like Kyle Davidson picking up the phone, and if I can get it, if I can fill up with draft picks in this next, especially in the high in the first round, there's 3 potential franchise players in this next upcoming draft with Bedard and Mitchkov and Fantilli. Those are 3 potential. Yeah, there's 3, and if you could get 2 of those picks, that would be great too. If you could sign, I know we're talking pipe dreams here, but if you could pull something like that off, package some stuff, do some stuff, whatever. If you could get 2 of those 3 in there, you're really then maybe advancing the rebuild a half a year or something like that. If you can get those 2 really good players, but even just getting one of them would be incredible for this franchise. And that's like you said. You have to keep your eye on the prize, and the eye on the prize is 2025, something of that, like Ray was saying. You can't get distracted you can't get distracted with the flashy things around this guy scored 30 goals or this and that, like the Dylan Strome and Dylan Strome, that's recency bias. When you're going back to Dylan Strome, that's recency bias. He ended the season in a dead season where teams didn't really defend against the Blackhawks anymore, scoring, a handful of goals against teams who knew they were going to smash the Blackhawks anyway. That's what that was. The year before, it was Vinny Hinostroza. You can't get rid of Vinny Hinostroza. You got to sign him. You got to bring him back. He did so well. He went and he went and barely got, a league minimum deal in Buffalo, and they re-signed him again this year, but he didn't get much more of a raise. Like, these are just guys. They're just guys. Like, do you need Dylan Strome to stick around more? No, you don't. We know what we've got with Dylan Strome. Dominik Kubalik, I was high on him with Ray too. Like, I thought he was going to be a pretty good player, and he kind of regressed, and people kind of figured him out, and then he just turned out to be just a guy who was making too much money. So now he's gone,
Yeah. No, I mean, you are going to see Domi or A2, one of them, if not both of them, playing with Patrick Kane this year to try to elevate their stats, to market them as trade bait, to see if you can sell them to the highest bidder and get something back in return. That's the whole reason they're around. They're not going to be in Blackhawk uniforms very long. I mean, that much is clear. So you're signing these guys to move them and to just keep rebuilding. So, I mean, if you can get, like you said, if you can get multiple picks in the first round, again, you got to do that every single time when you're in this position.
And the Hawks already have 2 first picks next year. They have theirs. They have theirs and Tampa's. But Tampa's have top 10 protected. Not going to happen, but just
no, but still. So they're already going to have 2 first-round picks. They will have a lottery ball to play because they're going to be that bad. Will it result in the number 1 overall pick? We're hoping so. We'll find out in due time. That brings us to one of the final points on the show tonight, and we're gonna, I want to talk about this as well as. We got to get rid of this on the ticker real quick. Kane and Taves. We always seem to talk about Kane and Taves towards the end of our podcast and what's going to become of them. We want to touch base on that, and then we want a few thoughts on Enzo. Ray, Kane and Taves. They're coming back for the beginning of the season. That looks like it's clear. Is the clock ticking? I mean, are these 2 guys, are they finally, or at least Patrick Kane, going to wave and say, I just can't do this anymore? I mean,
you would hope so. Yeah, and it would, it's going to hurt when he walks at the end of the year, no matter what. I mean, if you get nothing back for him, you'd hope, you've got a good relationship with him where he's going to say, hey, let me try and find that spot, maybe go somewhere that's going to help win a cup, raise it, and then maybe sign somewhere else. Gives you an opportunity that, hey, you win a cup and, this year, or try and win a cup, and then I become a free agent next year and I can, sign for my next deal and win a cup in my next spot. Maybe I end up with 5 to 6. That's the dream, right, for Kaner.
Right.
It would stink to see him skate off the ice at the end of the year and you get nothing for him. But that's his right. I mean, that's, if there's anybody that should have a no movement clause, it's Kane and Taves, right? So, when it comes to Taves, I just, I don't know what the market's going to be. You talk about retaining money, hopefully, if somebody's looking for a guy that can win a draw, kill some penalties, playing a third center role on a Stanley Cup type team, he might be your guy. But if you're trying to bring him in, and it sucks that you have to talk about him like this because, he's the captain of, 3 Stanley Cup champions. But
yeah,
I don't think you're going to get in a return like you are with Kaner. I mean, Kaner can still take over hockey games. I mean, he's still a top-notch player. I mean, there's not a, what you're getting. You're getting a guy that's going to help you win hockey games. He can completely take over a game when he's interested and he's playing. He can completely take over a game. So it stinks, as a fan. But I think if he were to just stay the whole year and walk, you're just going to be like, man, what did we leave on the table? But you're hoping that when he's talking to his agents, when he's talking to, talking to Davidson and saying, listen, this is going to be the goal. Let's see what we get there. Maybe we get some more out of it. Somebody gets hurt. Somebody can cheat the long-term injury reserve, whatever it is. Let's go. Sorry, Kaner. We'll have a prayer for you when you come back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Kane walks away for nothing as a UFA, and he certainly has earned that right, I mean, I guess at the very least, you shed a huge salary when you're rebuilding, when you're trying to get in that position to actually acquire young players that are becoming UFAs, and you actually want to buy one, then all of a sudden you've got the chips to do it. With that in mind, I mean, I still think there's going to be a market for both of them at the trade deadline. You also need to think there's twofold here. One, the Blackhawks could eat some salary at the trade deadline, but they're also going to be prorated. Yeah, but they're also going to be prorated. I mean, because it's a deadline deal, no one's going to be on the hook for the full amount,
right?
No matter what. So they'll be at half price, and then the Hawks could eat a little bit of salary on top of that. So, there's certainly going to be a big market for them. Shawnee, what do you think, Matt? Our buddy Matt wrote in another question. Matt, thank you for listening and being so busy tonight. These are great thoughts. And throwing this out there. And Sean, what do you think? What do you think Kane's value would be if he's asked to be traded now or at the deadline? I mean, knowing what they got for Cat.
Yeah, I don't know. I know in the question he says 2 firsts and a prospect, realistic, but I just wonder because they're going to have to retain half his cap if they're going to move him. So let's say it's prorated, it's like $5 million, so they retain 2. So they still have to find a team that's going to have that amount of cap space to fit him in. And then ultimately it's what do they have to play with? So maybe it's the New York Rangers because he goes to play with Artemi Panarin there in New York. And maybe you try to ask for 2 first-round picks and a prospect. That's what I would ask for. I don't know if they're going to get it, especially considering Kane's on the last year of his deal. He's going to be a UFA, so it's purely a rental. Like I would almost compare it to what did Florida get for, or what did Florida give up for Claude Giroux? Like they gave up Owen Tippett and something else. That's what I would kind of relate it to.
Well, they could kind of work in the trade like that. There is an implied extension or an implied, because Kane could get that extra being traded to that team. He could get that 8th year.
Right.
If he's going to be old, I don't know if anyone's going to give him 8 years, but he could get that implied 8th year. And then you could say that, there's this implied extension with that, and he's going to re-sign with that team. So that could also be negotiated in with the trade. But back to you.
No, but that makes a lot of sense then too. Then the team that they are trading to, whether it's the Rangers or the Devils or somebody like that they don't feel like they're giving up assets for nothing in return. So or for short-term gain. So yeah. As far as Taves, I like Ray and everybody else said, a 3rd-line center, maybe on a competitive team, you're going to have to eat at half. You're going to have to retain half his salary at least. And that's the most you can retain, I believe, is half his salary. So you're going to have to
50% is the most you can retain. Right.
So you're going to have to retain 50% of his salary. And then you might have to take somebody's trash back with a deal of the sweetener. Like you're going to have to take like maybe a bad contract back to offset the money.
But so what? I mean, if the Hawks have the space, who cares?
No, right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I almost if they're going to do as many deals as possible, they should use their salary cap space as a weapon and try to leverage. Go, okay, we'll take your trash. Oh, yeah. What are you giving us for it? Like what they did with Mrázek. We're going to take all your garbage, and if you want anything of value from us with significant cap on it, we'll take back trash. But we're also going to need another sweetener. So yeah,
like give us Milan Lucic, his bad contract. Bring him on over, and we'll send you Patrick Kane and whatever other stuff is in there. Like, and use that, be brutal and just take whatever you can, man. Write the book, write the whole paper on this thing. If you're going to do it right.
Right. You've already gone General Sherman. You've already steered to Atlanta. You might as well just keep burning it until you get to the sea. And then once you're build it all back up.
Right. And it's been years since the Blackhawks had money to play with. I mean, it's been forever. And so I think in that sense, it'll just be kind of nice just to have some dollars.
Yeah, and if you're looking at Claude Giroux, I like Claude Giroux. He's a very good hockey player. I'm not saying anything we don't know, but I'm getting more for Patrick Kane, even as a possible rental.
Oh, yeah.
We can absolutely take over games offensively. And if you're looking for, if you're absolutely stacked defensively and you've got your 2 centermen and you're looking for a winger can absolutely dominate for you, you've got it. You're bringing in Patrick Kane to win a Stanley Cup. And then, Gate, you guys were talking about, Shawnee, that, hey, if you're going to extend them, you're going to give them that after that. But, man, if you're looking at Claude Giroux's contract, I'd be happy, or trade, I'd be happy because I'm getting more than that.
Yeah, maybe that's the baseline they go, okay.
That's a good spot.
Giroux, so on and so forth.
Right. What's hurting Kane is that, he's in Chicago now. People are like, it's Patrick Kane. He just does what he does. And it's like, yeah, you can still – you put him on a good team, he's going to absolutely take off offensively for you.
Be lights out.
Possibly win a Stanley Cup. Yeah.
And, he sells when the bright lights are on. So, come playoff time, his game's going to go to a whole nother level, and that's going to be even like a lot of teams don't understand that because he hasn't played in the playoffs in how many years. He's going to be chomping at the bit to get back in there and just put Showtime on again. So somebody's going to get a fired up player.
Speaking of Patrick,
it's all dependent on if he decides to leave. It's his choice.
It's up to him.
Yeah.
It's up to him. Yep. Totally his call. He's earned that right. So speaking of Patrick Kane, we're going to just move on to the next and final segment of our show, and that's obviously Duncan Keith is retired, and what a warrior, what a great player, and the Hawks have had to absorb a salary hit because of that, $5.25 million next year, which is really unfortunate, but that's just the way the deal worked out. But the big news in the last 24 hours is obviously Eddie Olczyk has decided to move away from the Chicago Blackhawks as their color commentator and a key figure for the organization for a number of different years. And speaking about Patrick Kane and his impact on Kane and their relationship, I just wanted to play this clip. This happened in an interview today. If I could figure out this whole deal right now. I'm gonna screen share real quick, and the audio is the most important. But this is Enzo today, and these are his comments on talking to Patrick Kane about him leaving and moving on.
About the people like yourself, BB, that were part of this team. The people at NBC Sports Chicago were absolutely incredible to me and my family, and Kevin Cross and John Shipman and the entire staff there. And you being the captain there on air, but then also too, the opportunity of doing those games and getting a relationship with the players. Having a conversation with Patrick Kane was not an easy conversation with Kane. Was not an easy conversation to have with a couple of former Blackhawks that have retired now and moved on. The trainers, who are the lifeline of a hockey player and a hockey team, and that was really difficult. Brian Higgins and just the entire organization, and then the fans would never. I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank them enough just for how they treated me, and hopefully the feeling is mutual the other way. But and then having that conversation with Rocky and Danny, it's been a blast. But it's time to turn a new chapter and move on and just realize that the memories are always going to be there.
Oh man. So bummer news there. What do you think, Gate? Those thoughts and obviously the impact that he had.
I loved Edzo. I love listening to Edzo. I think it's funny. I think, he brings a lot to the broadcast. I think this is a short sight by the Blackhawks. Like maybe they're cutting salary, maybe they're doing whatever they're doing, but at least from what some of the reporters have been saying, like this negotiation's been going on for a long time and it wasn't getting to where Edzo wanted it. And if you're going to be you're cutting Pat fully loose, and that's fine because like I said online today, he kind of lost his fastball and was probably past his prime. And that's fine if you're going to move on. Whatever their choice was to replace him, that's a whole nother subject altogether. But Edzo is probably one of the most recognizable assets they had the entire organization. And if you want to have an organization still be slightly relevant where people are going to at least tune in to watch them, having Edzo there was pretty important, I think. And I think Edzo just got fed up at the end of it. He wasn't getting what he wanted, and he should have been given. I think he's earned the right. Like some of the, Kane and all those guys have all earned the right to earn a living and get what they deserve. And I think Edzo should have gotten what he deserved, because he's proven to be the best color man in the business. The Blackhawks didn't want to do it, and he said, "All right, fine, I'm going to Seattle." I picked a good year to switch back from Seattle to Chicago, but they're going to have John Forsland and Eddie Olczyk on it's going to be a national broadcast, national TV quality broadcast every night for the Seattle Kraken, which is amazing. But he just followed, his brother is the assistant GM over there at Seattle. And one of his sons is is a scout there. And now Nick Olczyk who I thought was a really good with the Blackhawks when he was doing analysis. I like Nick, and I liked him on the radio or on the TV and stuff. I thought Nick was pretty good. He's leaving too. Like that's a double loss right there. I think young Nick was kind of an up and comer. I don't know what they're left with at this point, except a couple of vanilla guys who nobody cares about doing the play-by-play and the color. I just
one that's going to drive me insane. They forced out John Weideman. He's not doing as much. Troy Murray, and that's about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do here to be able to bring people. I mean, you have to make people want to at least enjoy the tank. Right. No one's going to enjoy this with a bunch of guys announcing that nobody knows, that have zero personality, just zero. They're flatline personality. And like Edzo, definitely. Edzo cracked some jokes. He had some good stories, and it's like these other guys are like, oh yeah, Kobe Cohen. What story do you have? You have I played college somewhere one time.
I played college. Yeah. Dean Pod or Boston University. He was at Boston University.
Yeah, Edzo won a cup. Like, give me somebody who could tell me a story. At least fill in the time. They don't have anything. They have nothing. So I don't know what they're doing here. Like somewhere along the line, you have to allocate the money somewhere. Give it to Edzo for a couple of years so he could drag you on his back, drag you through this rebuild. And now nobody's going to be there to do it. So I don't know who's going to listen and watch.
Yeah, Ray, what do you think, man? I mean, we don't know exactly what happened here. Obviously, they couldn't come to an agreement. Did the Hawks lowball him? Was he being unrealistic? Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but obviously it was I think it definitely came as a shock to everybody. But what do you think?
It sucks because he's Chicago through and through. I mean, he's kind of our guy, right? He's here. He's from Chicago. That's what he's all about. He played for us. He went somewhere else and had cups and had a successful career. He came back. I kind of liken it to when the Hawks were looking for guys that you can say, all right, let's put them up on that pedestal. And now Stan Mikita's gone. And Eddie could have been that guy. That always was synonymous with Chicago Blackhawks. He's the voice of the Blackhawks. That's what it should be. Pat Foley growing up. I listened to him on the radio back when you couldn't watch him on TV, and he was the voice of the Blackhawks. He could have been that guy. So it stinks because you just hope it wasn't over a couple. When we talk millions, I mean we'd all be happy with millions, but we all know that the silliness that goes on behind the scenes with the Wirtz family. So you just hope it wasn't one of those things. And when you listen to him, you can tell it hurts. That sucks. As a fan, again, I mean, Ed Wilczek's our guy. That's what makes it tough. He was somebody that he's in that Stan Mikita realm. Not as a put up numbers as a Hawks like Stash, but he was going to be that guy, the rest of the way through. So it just sucks that he's going to be somewhere else, and then when he would go to, national broadcast, he was still coming back, doing Chicago games. So it just sucks. And Keith, one of the best, right? I mean, they used to joke at commercial, everybody runs on Duncan. The Hawks ran on Duncan. When he was on top of his game, nobody was going to beat him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't, Kane, Taves, there was Seabrook, there was a lot of guys that helped with, it's not just one player that wins a Stanley Cup, that. Nicholas Lindstrom, Paul Coffey, Ray Bork, Chara. Keith is in that category, man. I mean, you're talking about one of the top defenders of all time. And when Keith was on his game, he couldn't beat the Blackhawks. He was the most important player on that team. I truly believe that.
No, what he did in 2015 in that cup was extraordinary.
It was those four guys. He played 30 minutes a game. I think there was the triple overtime game. I think he played 40 minutes, maybe even longer against Nashville. He was in, and everybody forgets. I mean, everybody gives Kaner credit for scoring the goal in the game 6 to win it. Keith had the first goal, and he followed his own shot and went to the net and put it by Ben Bishop in game 6.
Oh, it was brilliant.
He'd been on the ice forever. He won the Conn Smythe. He was the best player in the playoffs that year, rightfully so. He won the Norris Trophy. When the Hawks were at their peak, it was Keith and Seabrook on the ice. You'd get them off for a shift, they'd be right back on, the two of them, all the time. That was the defensive pairing. And and Keith, he aged, but he aged gracefully. It wasn't like a steep decline like Seabrook was. He still probably could have played this year. He just didn't want to anymore. I mean, he's an all-time great. I'm wearing a Marian Hossa jersey. They're putting Marian Hossa's number up in the rafters. I think Keith's number will go up in the rafters eventually. It has to.
Might be this fall. Might be this fall. Could be right away.
Should be.
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely should be.
With the Edzo stuff, I did a little digging before the podcast. Some of the reports I had read, I think on The Athletic or something, I think John Greenberg for The Athletic had said they were offering Edzo more money per game, but they weren't paying him like a higher salary because they were factoring in does national games and the horse racing and stuff like that. So he was getting more money per game, but it wasn't overall more money. So I like Ray said, like, whenever I think of soft serve, I think of Eddie Olczyk because he always talked about eating soft serve on the broadcast. Or when he always go for all you young hockey fans out there, like, and when we would watch that when you would go to a national game and Eddie O would be there, like, I don't know about you, but I got comfort like watching the national game with Eddie O calling it because I felt like I was watching a regular game. It was just Eddie O was just a part of like Blackhawks culture and their life, and he was when I attended the Blackhawks conventions, he'd always have a great story to tell. So he told a story one time how he gave a VCR to a guy because one of the enforcers, he goes, if this guy takes a run at me, I'll give you something. He goes, what are you gonna give me? He goes, how about a VCR? So somebody took a run at Eddie O. The enforcer stepped in, fought the guy, and then skating off the ice, and the guy's going, VCR. And Eddie O told the story, and I didn't do it justice, and Eddie O told the story that way. And it was brilliant. So, like, it's going to be sad. He's been a part of Blackhawks life, and Seattle makes sense. His brother is the AGM, and we're still going to get him on national broadcasts.
You'll see him for an occasional Blackhawks game or two. I just think it
hurts.
It is just really weird tuning into the Blackhawks in general next year without Foley, without Enzo, with the lineup that they're trotting out there. I mean, I can't imagine what this is doing for their ticket sales. I mean, clearly the Wirtz family, they're gonna be eating a lot of revenue with their hockey team over the next few years, and they're probably completely prepared to bite the bullet on that. And you kind of need to do that in a rebuild. But yeah, it's just going to feel a little strange without those guys in the booth. And Shawnee, you mentioned Edzo always saying, all you young hockey players out there, when he slows it down and goes through a replay, and all of his comments are insightful. And if they weren't, he wouldn't be on national television. And now he's a horse handicapper. You see him at the Derby every year, the first Saturday of May, which is awesome. Yep. And he was synonymous with Blackhawks hockey and always will be. And who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if he's back one day too. I mean, he could be back. This might not be it. This might be just BC for later. With Duncan Keith, I guess what a lot of people don't remember. There were some really lean years when both Keith and Seabrook were playing regular minutes in Chicago as young defensemen, and when Kane and Taves showed up, and it was kind of lightning in a bottle, but those guys had to go through it. Those guys in Sharp, I mean, they had to go through a few years where it was just brutal, and they learned the game. Duncan got really confident with the puck.
Ray,
second round pick.
Didn't Ray have a nickname for Keith back then?
Me?
Yeah. I swear you had a nickname like out of town or something like that because you thought he was going to be out of town after those lean years when he was.
No, that's not me.
No, I apologize.
I remember I lived on
those two guys.
Yeah, I was living on Southport and George when Keith was a rookie, and I was living 2 doors down from Curtis Brown, and I remember Duncan Keith showing up with a backwards hat and sweatpants, just going to hang out with him. And I'm like, there's some kid banging on Curtis Brown's door. No idea who. I mean, he wasn't a big kid. He was probably 20 or 21 years old and was kind of looking around, wasn't sure where he was, banging on the door, and and then he becomes the best defenseman in the NHL. And a lot of people don't remember that 2014 year where he won his second Norris when the Hawks did not win the Cup. How good he was that year.
Yeah.
That may have been his best overall wire-to-wire season. Well, I guess, but then he followed it up with a Conn Smythe. So first ballot Hall of Famer, Dunks, part of the team and part of the game. That's part of us. And we're gonna miss both these guys. It's just getting a little weird in Blackhawkville these days. So with that, we've gone for $120 tonight, folks, and it's because we haven't seen you in so long. So I think now is the time to say goodnight. Any parting shots, Ray, Shawnee, anything?
It's going to be a couple good years that if you have things going on, if you want to work later at work, if you're looking for that trip that you've always wanted to take during hockey season, but you didn't want to miss the Blackhawks, it's a good time to be taking those for the next couple of years.
Good seats will be available.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The Chiefs are home tonight at the War Memorial. Good seats are still available. It's going to be, and to that point, and for those of you that have wanted to see a hockey game for a long time and you haven't gotten to the United Center, you might be able to find some pretty cheap seats.
Secondary market.
It might be a good time to go. Well, anyway, with all that's going on with the Chicago Blackhawks, really good to see you guys and catch up for a July podcast. And and as Bard just wrote in, Andrew Bard, who's a regular here, plan your weddings in May and June for the next 3 to 5 years. If you're a Blackhawk fan,
and ladies, yep.
We appreciate it. That's an excellent comment.
Yep.
And so, in the words of Edzo and Pat Foley, and Enzo even said this the other day, we hope you enjoyed the broadcast tonight. And if the Hawks win, we know you enjoyed the outcome. But anyway, gonna miss those guys. Hats off to you. Hats off to Duncan Keith. And get ready, folks. Rebuild is on. It's happening. Be patient. Be patient. On behalf of myself, Ray, and Shawnee, everyone have a great night. And thanks for listening. Take care.
That's it.